This is obviously different than what you were known for in the early days. I mean, how did you come upon finding this expanded sound, and why did you arrive there?
Well, I really had been trying to think on it since Small Town Heroes, when Small Town Heroes came out. So it was a good couple of years of me thinking, okay, really, there's so much I have to work on as a singer, as a songwriter. And I had done a lot of albums that were experiments in songwriting, and every song kind of sounded a little different. And I really wanted to try to come up with a cohesive sound and idea. And I think it was just listening to a lot of music. I was listening to a lot of Georgia Ben, and that really changed some things for me. And I was listening to Rodriguez. Rodriguez was kind of this light bulb going off in my mind's moment where it's like, oh, I'll just make street poetry that sounds like the city, but it also has Latin influence, and I can still be myself while bringing in these other influences. And I think the last step was finding Paul Butler. Paul Butler, the producer, and me just had so much fun listening to records together, talking about different influences, and really trying to piece all the sounds together. We really wanted to make a sound that was cinematic, that was like what we kept going back to.
Was there much trial and error in that? Because first off, that's so interesting that you say, street poetry with your own musical influences, because I don't know that I've heard any artist, at least any time recent, come at it from that point of view. So to find that sound, I mean, how many times did you try for something that just got thrown out? Like, no, that's not it. Or were you able to kind of get to it pretty quickly at that point?
There were certain songs that were harder than others. We did maybe 4 versions of Living in the City because we just couldn't get that. See, I was like, it just has to be this walking pace. It has to feel like you are Lou Reed and you're like wandering through just the gritty back alleys of the city, and yet you're looking at all these like beautiful, resilient people at the same time. And we have these images in our heads, so some of them were harder to achieve than others. I always find it's the songs that you think are going to be so simple that are the hardest to record. The ones that you're like, oh, we just got to groove on that. It's like, yeah, good luck grooving. Like that's something that happens or it doesn't happen. So some of them were harder than others. I think some of them, like 14 Floors, for example, it was just like, you got to be ready, because I sat down at that electric piano and it was like, I'm ready to record this right now. If we don't get it right now, I might not do it as good. So, it was also just being ready for when the inspiration arrived.
Yeah, finding that magic in the studio, which is not always easy when you're in a room sitting in a chair. It's
yeah, totally.
On the lyrical side, which is a very important part of Hurray for the Riff Raff, you've always been an artist who's been socially reflective. So with everything that's happening right now, does it make it easier or harder to write, given that it seems like there's a similar target for everyone?
Well, I think right now I feel very grateful that I have these songs, because right now it does feel like a hard time for me to write, just because I feel very overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. There's just so much going on that it feels very hard to be reflective, because I'm very much in a place of like, what just happened? What's happening now? 5 things happen every day, Right. So I feel very grateful that I have these songs that I wrote during a more reflective period. I think right now is definitely a good time for me personally to be playing, to be like with the audience, to be performing and singing.
Some of these singles too, because I think I saw a write-up of something you put for the Navigator, and you were saying what the Navigator is. And my surmise was, and I don't know how close or far I am by this, but with this, by the way, but that the Navigator is a voice telling us to listen to humanity.
Well, yes, very much. I really, to me, it takes a lot of different forms, and I really like that, because I feel like that can make it, more universal, more for, people of all different walks of life to engage with the idea of the Navigator. And yeah, I really feel like it's this voice in us that's saying, people are complicated. People are different than you. People are, from they're endlessly interesting and complicated and human. And it also, to me, is the sound of, our ancestors saying, hey, you guys, it's time to make things right. Like out there on Earth, it's time to heal, and it's time to heal each other and be honest with each other and move forward together.
Because we're not getting to those new planets anytime soon.
No.
And Riken Beach, which I guess was the first one to be debuted, right?
Yeah.
You say, I'll keep fighting till the end. And I don't know if it's a silly question or too broad of a question, but what does the end look like for you? Where does the fight get to end? Where do you get to rest?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, I think for my idea of what the end is, it's just the end for me, but I feel like when I talk, and also this idea of fighting, it's a funny word because it's like, what it means is like, I will aggressively stand up for peace and justice, it's like, how do you be aggressively peaceful? Or
right.
It's like, I mean, but also that is a real thing, to be determined and to be focused on peace and justice. And for me, it just means I will use my time on Earth to try to leave this place better than how it was handed to me for the future generations and for the children that are growing up right now. And that's what it means.
Beautiful words. And again, I love everything, and Hungry Ghost is a great single. We've been enjoying that one too.
Thanks.
But you're my favorite kind of artist. When I look for something to latch onto in music and in art, you're doing all the things that I am hopeful that more artists will pick up on. So
thank you.
Thank you for doing everything, and I'm looking forward to the release and the whole thing, and good luck with everything you got going on this year.
Oh, thank you so much.
And take care.
Yeah, you too.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.